Good morning, everyone. With our county council session, we will start with general business. Madam Clerk, I know that there are no announcements today. Next we're gonna move on to the minutes. I need approval for June 30th, 2026 council session and June 30th, 2026 closed session. They have been shared with the council. Are there any objections to approving these minutes? Seeing none, these minutes are approved. We're gonna move on with agenda item 1, and it's a public hearing on expedited bill 30-26, bond authorization, stormwater management. This bill will authorize Montgomery County, Maryland to issue special limited obligation bonds for the purposes of financing the planning, design, acquisition, and construction and maintenance of stormwater management facilities and other related projects, and for refunding all or part of the outstanding special limited obligations bonds issued for such purposes. Action is scheduled for later in this meeting. As a reminder of our public hearing testimony guidelines, your comments must be limited to issues relevant to the public hearing topic for which you are testifying and are appropriate for a public meeting. You will hear a tone when your time is up, and we appreciate everyone abiding by their allotted time. I'm gonna call those who have signed up. Each person has 3 minutes. So we have Mr. Gordy Brennan, Kenneth Bauer, Marion Ebe, Danila Cheveiko. And we will start with Gordy Brennan. It's not on. No, push it.
Good morning. Gordy Brennan with the Taxpayers League. It looks like the executive is playing the council and taxpayers for chumps, and I'll explain why. I say it looks like because this huge expedited bond proposals just fell from the sky in April after the budget was presented, with little disclosure for why it's being proposed. I started my career as budget director for the Illinois EPA following years of consulting for government and commercial clients, and served as internal audit director for Marriott and a controller. None of the financing proposals in over 50 years have raised as many fundamental questions as this one does, beginning with why do this in a period of high interest rates? We do know watershed restoration is slow growth, a mature program, since development has slowed dramatically in our county and streams to be restored are finite. Also, the rain tax is a very tempting cash cow. We've reviewed the fiscal plan published with the program budget before this bond proposal came up. It shows strong cash flows in light of the 7% fee increase you approved and a healthy debt service coverage ratio. Planned restoration projects seem like more of the same over the years with no material financial surprises. The county uses fee revenues to pay debt service on stormwater project bonds and to finance operating expenses. But this $125 million bond proposal is 11 times the current restoration debt service, above the 3-year standard by the Government Finance Officers Association, and new debt service would eventually overwhelm rain tax fee revenues. Maybe the reason for the new bond proposal started with this year's budget adjustment, transferring 30 DOT employees who were assigned to the Department of Environmental Protection, that's a whopping 28% of their operating budget staff, to the DEP capital budget. Why on earth would this happen? Are borrowed DOT staff in restoration operations, stream restoration, suddenly planning, design, and supervision specialists for water quality? Or does this suggest there are plans afoot to use the capital budget next year to work around structural deficit problems instead of cutting staff? This transfer could violate generally accepted accounting principles for capitalizing expenses and uses bonds to finance operations. Lastly, we were reminded that historical restoration practices don't work. PFAS showed up last month in public announcements, forever chemicals, and found in DEP holding ponds for stormwater runoff from a former county public safety training site. A 2021 DEP consultant site report totally ignored PFAS. Equally disturbing is why PFAS was reported by the state, not the county's inspection program. I would suggest you either cut this proposal in half or move forward quickly with an OL study of funding needs for these projects and how they should be prioritized based on scientific evidence of actual local pollution reduction and flood control. Please add a new public reporting requirement for individual public outcomes and expectations in the budget. There's more in our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, Kenneth Bauer.
Good morning. My name is Kenneth Bauer with the Coalition to Stop Stream Destruction. We are against this bill due to the misuse of water quality protection charge funds, which are meant to be used for projects which improve our stream's water quality. Specifically, this bill would provide funding for destructive engineered stream restorations. This would be a blatant misuse of taxpayer dollars for projects that we know have failed in the past and we know will fail in the future. In my written testimony, you can see video examples of how stream restorations destroy our streams when they clear-cut forests, bulldoze streams, and dump fill material into them. And we have a link to photos of failed projects in the county. The preponderance of scientific evidence, published papers that analyzed over 700 engineered restorations, shows that water quality and ecological function are not improved and are sometimes made worse. But DEP and parks continue to deny the science. They have bought into the greenwashing and disinformation from the $25 billion engineered stream restoration industry. Engineered stream restorations fail because they do not address the root cause of stream erosion, which is uncontrolled stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces such as roads and roofs that fire hoses into streams. This is why these projects are being washed out by storms and require taxpayers to fund expensive repairs. When asked why stream restorations cannot be replaced by pavement and roadside bioswales, DEP and parks falsely claim that there aren't enough locations for out-of-stream stormwater control projects, but this claim is made without having done any actual analysis. When the fracking industry claimed that fracking had no harmful effects, elected officials investigated and then banned fracking in Maryland. The tobacco industry lied about their products, but elected officials researched it and then banned indoor smoking in Maryland. The council did not believe that the pesticide industry, that their products are harmless, and banned lawn pesticides. Gas-powered leaf blowers have been banned due to their harmful effects. The county executive has questioned the impact of data centers by pausing them for 6 months, and we support a council resolution recommending a moratorium. So why believe the stream restoration industry that their product is safe and effective? Doing an engineered stream restoration or outfall stabilization instead of controlling stormwater before it enters the stream or outfall is like trying to repair a water-damaged home interior while the roof is still leaking. Rather than wasting our tax dollars, with this bill that will provide funds for new engineered stream restorations and repairs, this bill should be amended to require that money should only be spent on out-of-stream stormwater control projects that will help prevent stream and outfall erosion in the first place. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Marion Eady. Can you please turn on your mic at the bottom? There you go.
There you go. I am here today representing the Sierra Club as well as myself. I should start by acknowledging we know little about the circumstances which prompted this request emergency. But as we understand, some of DEP's stormwater projects can no longer get financing from Maryland's Water Quality Revolving Loan Fund because they're not about water quality. We feel the same way about the Water Quality Protection Charge. It should be used for the purpose for which it was created, not to secure bonds for anything else. We are also concerned that the County Council is being asked to relinquish its power of the purse and fiscal responsibilities regarding stormwater management. This bill authorizes the county executive to sell bonds for $125 million, not once, but over and over without legislative oversight. A single person gets the power to create more debt at will, like turning on a faucet. This kind of temptation rarely ends well, especially when we already spend a quarter of DEP's stormwater operating budget paying interest on debt we already have. These bonds would be secured by future revenue from the Water Quality Protection Charge. What will this vicious cycle of debt do to our future water bills? Isn't there a better way? Yes. We could remove the Tier 7 cap on the Water Quality Protection Charge and charge more for properties with over 6,000 square feet of impervious surface. This could raise millions, buffer the impact on other households, and discourage the paving of so much land. We could also spend the money far more effectively. Some of it is diverted to things like transportation infrastructure. Much of the rest goes for stream restorations. Many studies looking at hundreds Those restorations have found they rarely improve water quality and usually harm ecological function. Moreover, they must be done over and over again because they don't address the cause, our failure to absorb stormwater before it goes in the stream. Right now, our county, there are at least 10 failed stream restorations waiting for repair. MDE's 2022 financial insurance plan lists 15 uplands control which do address causes, can get MS4 credits, and cost less per acre treated than stream restorations. Tree planting is less expensive and offers many co-benefits, cooling our cities in a rapidly warming world. Stream restorations remove hundreds of trees. In Montgomery County, we spend about 50 times more on cure than prevention. Since the Chesapeake Bay program began in 1983, Maryland has spent about $25 billion on stream restorations to improve the health of the bay. Yet the bay gets a grade of only C today, and the health of our local streams has greatly declined. Most people don't want to give up power unless they're trying to avoid responsibility for a struggling or failed policy. Please don't do this. Your constituents did not elect you to run away from responsibility. We need your leadership. Please vote against Emergency Bill 3026. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Next, Danny.
President, distinguished council members, speaking in opposition to this bill as well, it has been presented to you as a simple bond authorization. If you look at the bill, it is anything but. It transfers the power, the legislative power of the purse, to create debt permanently to the county executive. It gives the county executive power in all matters relating to the sale, issuance, delivery, and payment of the bonds, including without for which these bonds are issued. And it gives the power to the county executive to issue these bonds $125 million at a time. This is not a single issue of $125 million. You're signing over the power to create sales from time to time and any time, and that's a quote, at upwards of $125 million at a time, without prior consent from the county council, through a private negotiated sale, and, quote, without solicitation of competitive bids, unquote. This is unraveling the very system of separation of powers and checks and balances that this democracy is based on. I urge you to vote against this emergency legislation. Nowhere in the legislative memo or in the presentation of the bill did they even mention why this emergency is required, why this fundamental transfer of legislative powers to the executive branch is going through without so much as a committee hearing. None of this is explained. None of this has been brought up. None of the environmental groups were informed about this very important piece of legislation. Nobody was consulted. What's the emergency? Please ask. Please ask before you vote on this bill, what is the emergency that is requiring turning over legislative powers to create debt to the executive branch? And also ask, why do we need to create this debt to begin with? Why do we need to borrow from Wall Street for to improve our water quality? We have the water quality protection charge tax that funds the water quality protection fund. We're raising tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars every year using this fee. So why do we need to borrow the money? Well, because very little of it actually goes towards the capital improvement projects in the capital budget that actually improve water quality. Less than 19% of the revenue from the fund goes into the capital budget. The rest of it gets misappropriated right off the bat for payroll and for payments to Wall Street on the debt we already created. Please look at the bill before you vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And I'm gonna say before we close the public hearing that I expect the county executive's team to be here as we bring this forward for action. Okay? So they can explain their side. They're on record. So thank you for your time. This public hearing is now closed. We're gonna move on. Interviews for the council representative on the Board of Investment Trustees for Employee Retirement Plans and the Board of Trustees for the Consolidated Retiree Health Benefits Trust. We have Joshua Birch and Michael Sinawe. I'm sure I said that wrong. Please come up to the table. Thank you for being here. You can see I see Michael here. Perfect. Thank you both for your time and for being with us today and for applying to serve on these important boards. I have a few questions for you, and we will alternate who answers those questions every time we pass one question, okay? So we're gonna start with the first one for Mr. Birch. So please share with us your background, knowledge, and experience related to the investment programs for defined benefit pension plans, defined contribution plans, and retiree health benefit trust, especially as it relates to staff. Please go first and state your name right on top.
Yes, I'm Joshua Birch. I'm a director of investments at AARP. My background, I was born in DC, raised in Maryland, so lived in Prince George's County my entire life. Started at AARP in May of 2008 as an intern. I was working on my master's degree in accounting and financial management. At AARP today, I help manage 4 different investment portfolios. I manage the private investments, so that's private equity, real assets, and private credit for the plan. We have defined asset allocations that we work with each board. We are managing just about $16 billion in assets today across those 4 different pools. 3 of them are endowment or endowment-like, so they have spending rates on the portfolio. The spending rates go back to support the organization's social mission. And then we also have an open pension plan for employees. The pension plan is open and accruing. It's return-seeking in nature, since we are strong believers in retirement security for our members and also for our employees. I am responsible for leading the private investments, but I also work closely on the asset allocation, so I work closely with the boards. We set the risk-return parameters for the organizations to ensure they meet the expected risk returns for the organization based upon either the spend rate or the cash outflows for each plan. Also on the pension plan, work closely on the asset liability studies as we think about the beneficiaries in the plan and what's the expected risk and return for those plans, as well as helping with manager selection. I've been at AARP 18 years, so I've done a little bit of everything over my time there, but those are the things that I'm primarily responsible for today. But happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Michael Sanaway.
Yes, I'm Michael Sinaway. Thank you. Good morning to everybody. I have 20 years plus of experience across institutional investment management, endowment management, asset allocation, portfolio construction, proprietary trading. Currently a director of investments for Penn State University. We're about $10 billion, and I work directly with our CIO and investment committee on asset allocation, portfolio construction, and manager selection. Prior to that, I worked at Glenmead, a $40 billion manager, working in similar capacity, working with families and institutions, and also involved on, with ESG initiatives as well. Prior to that, worked at Atlas Capital, which primarily dealt with hedge funds, where I worked with pension funds, on their asset allocation, portfolio construction specifics to their hedge fund allocation. I would say today, main role is working with our CIO, investment committee, and the rest of the team on asset allocation, portfolio construction, and specifically within asset classes such as equity, fixed income, hedge funds, and more sort of opportunistic and niche investments. Thank you again.
Thank you for that. And let me just say very quickly that the people coming from the county council. The second question, we're going to start with Mr. Sunaway. What is your understanding of the fiduciary duty of a trust? How do you integrate environmental, social, and governance factors into investment decisions to achieve long-term financial goals and positive societal impact?
I think fiduciary duty comes first, always acting in the best interests of plan beneficiaries. But within that, specific to ESG factors, I think they should be strongly considered, especially when they're financially material, whether that's governance quality, the long-term sustainability of an asset, or regulatory risk. I know this committee has been very disciplined and shown rigor with its ESG integration, specifically with PRI reporting and manager engagement. And I respect what the committee has done. I think I would apply the same rigor to using ESG considerations really as another looking at things like risks and opportunities, but remembering the fiduciary duty first, keeping plan beneficiaries, and their best interests at heart.
Thank you. Mr. Birch?
Yes, it's important to always put the fiduciary responsibility and the beneficiaries first. That being said, we're also strong believers in integrating ESG into our plans. To give you a couple of examples of how we've used it as an organization, we have a specific questionnaire that we complete. We work because we have a large policy book that lays out our beliefs. So we made sure that we align our investments with those specific public policy beliefs. And we've sent this out for a decade, so this is something that we've done for a very long period of time to make sure that we don't have any headline risk with any of our particular managers that directly conflict with the organization's thoughts and beliefs. We also look a lot at headline risk, so ensuring that the managers that we're investing in will not cause any specific headline risk to the organization. That can often be very easily looked at when you see Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, people that tend to become more controversial on the front pages. We always have to take into account the fiduciary responsibility of our members, but we do want to also think about the organization and any impacts that you could have negative to the organization by partnering with managers that may be against your beliefs. Another thing that we're strongly implementing is we're a strong believer in the diversity of thought across investment teams. So as we're underwriting managers, we made sure that you have diverse backgrounds, diverse viewpoints, different schools that they've gone to. A couple of things that we've done on the venture side that I'm responsible for. These are very small managers in Silicon Valley, but we have one all female-led operator team that brings in female operators from Silicon Valley. They're able to become board members at firms. They're able to help underwrite potential investments, and it also helps lead to greater financial success for those individuals due to the wealth gap that we have. We also have one of the largest Black-owned venture capital firms that we partner with. They work closely with Howard University on various diversity initiatives. So we believe having diverse viewpoints, diverse thoughts sort of across the portfolio can also lead to better outcomes. So those are some of the different ways that we have implemented it at our organization. And every organization is unique, but I would work closely to figure out what works best for Montgomery County.
Thank you. Third question, we're going to start with Mr. Birch. What are the most important issues facing retirement plans and health benefits trust in the coming years, and how do you plan to address them?
I think the big asset allocation with the risk return parameters that meet the fiduciary duties and that aim to achieve the expected risk and return for the beneficiaries. That's first and foremost. I mean, we see in the news cycle, crazy things happen all the time, and it's easy to get distracted and want to move the cash or massively change the asset allocation. But we understand that we're long-term investors. We need to be able to hit the targeted return for these beneficiaries over very long periods of time. And it's important that we not overreact to any short-term environments that's occurring. So having good governance in place where you have defined asset classes, where you have ranges, where you have meetings with the board to ensure that you're achieving the long-term targets of the plan and not overreacting at any one point in time to a drawdown in the market is very important. And I think that's the overarching most important thing that you need to think about as part of a pension plan.
Thank you. Mr. Sonaway?
I think both of us could talk all day about this. The problem, there are a multitude of problems out there. Maybe I'll just very quickly highlight three that come to mind. First is, it's been in the press. A lot of institutions and pension programs have really allocated to private investments. And, with that comes liquidity issues. So the first is, how do you plan for redemptions and cash needs? That's a major one. Two is potentially could be entering into a more inflationary environment. So how do you keep the corpus or the purchasing power of the corpus, the same or growing over time, really in perpetuity for the benefit of plan participants? And the last one I'd highlight is, there are really sort of a range of potential outcomes for equity returns. We've been in a period where equity returns have been very strong. And planning for that wide range of outcomes, I think, is crucial for a plan such as this, because returns, are uncertain going forward.
Thank you. The fourth question, we're going to start with Mr. Sonaway. The council must not confirm any person who furnishes to pension funds and other institutional investors, or any person who's employed by a firm that furnishes to institutional investors the kind of investment services purchased by the boards. Is there anything in your current employment that will create a conflict of interest with your obligations as a member of the boards? Or are there any other potential conflicts of interest of which we should be aware?
No, I have no conflicts of interest.
Okay.
I have no conflicts of interest either.
Long question for a very short answer. Straight to the point, just how it should be always. The fifth question, we're going to start with Mr. Birch. The boards typically meet at least 4 times a year, usually on Fridays in January, April, July, and October. It may have additional meetings throughout the year. Would you be available to make the time commitment the boards require?
Yes, I will be available.
Next.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Beautiful. Again, thank you both for coming to speak with us today. I have a few follow-up questions. We're going to start with Councilmember Don Lukey.
Thank you both. Yes, so I the question about ESG, and of course this is an existing body, an existing board dynamic. So, both of you have other community experience, and I know in the questions that you must answer for us, you don't get to talk about that or yourselves as individuals in quite that way. But I wanted to ask what it is that you would bring in the people skills department to this existing group dynamic. So I don't know which order you're supposed to go in, but go for it.
I think I'm supposed to go first. Yeah, I think investment management and managing assets on behalf of beneficiaries, it's really a people business. Whether it's governance, working with consultants, managers, relationships, and obviously there are hard numbers, but being able to have the soft skills, and something that I've sort of honed over 20 years working in a board context, making sure everybody's sort of heard, but rowing in the same direction as well. And the role of investment committee member or trustee is really to provide guidance, guardrails, and insight, and based on the long experience that we both have.
Yeah, and I work across multiple different types of boards. So internally, we have legal counsel for the elderly, which is a group of lawyers that help lower income 50-plus individuals in DC with various issues. So that's just lawyers, so it's a very different board than our ARP Foundation, which focuses on lower income, 50-plus individuals, which might have more of a social mission focus there versus ARP's board versus our pension. So you need to ensure that you're sort of being able to adapt to all different types of boards, different types of board members, the different views and perspectives that come from each of the different types of boards and board members. And that's something that I've always enjoyed with my role, because I'm able to work across multiple different types of boards. They all have different board members, and you have to be able to sort of adapt how you interact, how you work with them, how you work through risk return parameters, how you think about what's best for that individual plan. And it's not just one size fits all, but you need to work directly with that individual plan. So I think that's something that I've had a lot of experience with over the years, and I think I could also bring it to the table here.
Thank you both.
Great questions. Next, I have Councilmember Kate Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Thank you to Councilmember Lukey. I want to build on some of her questions and your responses, and go back to Mr. Burge, what you talked about governance issues. As you may have paid attention to in the last year, this council actually looked at the governance quite in depth of the bit, and just wanted to give you the opportunity to share any of your thoughts, if you were able to look at some of the conversations we've had, some of the changes we've made to governance, and what are your experiences with different boards and other things to really bring not a fresh set of eyes, because we've looked at this issue, but really think about how we're going to be able to move forward with some of the changes that we made.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's very important, especially when you're starting out, is to make sure that you fully understand the background, how things got to where they are and where they are today. As new board members, one of the issues that I've seen historically working with various boards is a board member can come in oftentimes with very strict views or beliefs on something right out of the gate, and it can cause actually some conflicts on the board. So it's first very important to understand what's the background, where you are today, and then as you get to know the other board members and understand the team, the process, how everything goes on, you can begin to present different ideas and thoughts, but also make sure that you're not sort of overbearing, and that you're working with the group and understanding how that works. Because one of the issues that we've had in the past that you always end up working through, but when you have new board members come in, they can sometimes have very strong thoughts or ideas, and then they want things implemented on day one. And it doesn't always match up with what you're ultimately trying to achieve. So I found that it's best to make sure that you get a full, good understanding of what's going on, the history, the background, and what the other members are bringing to the table, and then slowly over time look at maybe presenting some new issues or ideas, but not try to hit everything right out of the gate without being fully versed on this subject.
Yeah, I think, at least for the first few months or even the first year, most important thing in this role is to listen and learn. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with any board, which we know, 1%. So I think just getting up to speed, getting to know the board members, learning the history, and then, understanding the investments and the hard numbers as well, but slowly integrate yourself into the process and start giving your opinions, but don't come on too strong. Really take your time to understand the situation and the past where you've come from in order to help you determine where you want to go with the portfolio and the planning for the beneficiaries' benefit.
Thank you very much. Great questions by the two council members. With that, thank you for coming today. You're going to hear from our clerk once we're ready. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
This is me sending you away. We're going to move on with our legislative session. This is day 18 for those who are counting. Agenda item 3, bills for introduction. The first one is Expedited Bill 32-26, Employees Retirement System, Survivors Benefits, Death During Line of Duty, Expanded Eligibility to Groups E and J. The lead sponsors are Council Members Lutke, Glass, and Katz. A public hearing is scheduled for September 15, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to turn it to I'm going to start with Council Members Lutke.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, if you will recall, during our discussion of the HERO Act earlier this year, which improved the delivery of benefits to the family of firefighters, and after my amendment, also to police officers who are killed in the line of duty, we committed to bringing back, once it was ready and ripe, to make a fix to also include our sheriff's deputies and frontline corrections and rehabilitation officers. They are also part of our public safety system and are also facing potentially dangerous situations every day. There was widespread agreement that they should have access to similar improvements. And this is that bill and that corrective action. And Katz, the lead sponsors of the original HERO Act and co-leads on this bill with me for working together on this, as well as our labor partners at McGeo and the Office of Labor Relations to ensure that the legislation works in the context of their bargained contracts. I look forward to taking this up in September. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I turn it to council members, I'm going to ask council staff if there's anything else to add.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, I have council member Shebra Evans.
I wanted to sign on as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Council members, Council Vice President Marilyn Balcom.
Yes, I'd like to sign on as a co-sponsor and appreciate the work of the co-leads on this and the prior bill. Thank you.
Next, I have council member Wojo Wando.
Thank you. Yes, I'd also like to be added as co-sponsor.
Next, I have council member Keith Stewart.
Please add me as a co-sponsor.
Next, I have council member Andrew Friedson.
Ditto. Co-sponsor, please.
Then I have council member Kristen Mink.
Please add me as a co-sponsor, and thank you for the work on this.
And I also would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you so much. And with that, this bill is introduced. We are going to move on to our next bill for introduction.
My hand was raised. I don't think you saw it. I too would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you so much. Okay. It's just really hard to see your hand, so you know. It just matches with the background. But thank you for telling me. Text will work great too. Next, we have Bill 34-26, Health and Sanitation Body Work Establishments Amendments. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Lutke. Co-sponsors are myself with Councilmembers Stewart and Katz. A public hearing is scheduled for September 15, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Lutke.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill grew directly out of conversations that we have been having at the county's Human Trafficking Prevention Committee. I've served on that committee since I started on the council, and I currently serve as the vice chair of that. In the labor or sex context doesn't always occur or look the way people expect it to. It often occurs in businesses that appear perfectly legitimate until you look a little deeper. And that is why that is so important to have strong coordination between law enforcement, HHS, our Human Trafficking Prevention Committee. And over the past year, we have dramatically increased our enforcement of illicit body works establishments. So from June 2024 to February 2026, police issued 40 civil citations to 25 spas and charged 13 spa owners with felony offenses related to illegal operations. There's a gap. Here's the problem. Some of the same individuals who end up getting cited and they shut down that particular business, they just pop up as a new LLC, but it's the same people in a different part of the county and apply for another license, and the cycle starts over again. And that's what this is aimed at, attempting to close that gap and give us some tools that these different stakeholder groups within county government can work together to close that gap in the best interests of our public and of those who are being victimized by trafficking. So I appreciate the discussions we've had with the members of the Human Trafficking Prevention Committee, our Vice and Intelligence Unit at MCPD, and HHS's Licensing and Regulatory Division. And I want to thank everyone who is already co-sponsoring this bill. So with that, thank you.
Very important bill. Thank you for your work on this. Before I turn it to council members, is council staff wanting to add anything? Seeing none, I'm going to start with council member Andrew Fritzen.
Thanks for your work on this. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Thank you. Council member Shara Evans.
I appreciate the work as well. And I just want to say, before you start reading, just reading the title does not tell you anything about what the bill is about. So when I started reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. So sign me up as a co-sponsor. I just need to say that.
Thank you. And we welcome you to come to any of the committee meetings too.
Councilmember Kristen Mink.
I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Council Vice President Marilyn Belcom.
Please add me as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Councilmember Will Jawando.
I'd like to be added as well. Thanks for the work.
And with that, this bill is introduced. Thank you so much for your work, and we're going to move on to the third bill for introduction today. Is Bill 35-26, Forest Conservation, Trees, Applicability, Brush Management. The lead sponsors are Councilmember Sales and Council Vice President Balcom. The co-sponsors are, or is, Councilmember Lutke. A public hearing is scheduled for September 15, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Sales. Yes, right?
Yes, you can start with me, and then I'll turn it back over to Vice President Balcom. Thank you to Vice President Balcom for working with me on this bill. I am proud to co-lead it with our Vice President, which is basically providing common sense clarity to our forest conservation law by reducing unnecessary regulatory burdens on our agricultural community while maintaining our county's strong commitment to environmental stewardship. Under the current law, farmers performing routine vegetation maintenance may be required to obtain advance approval from the planning director, even when that work already complies with established federal conservation standards. Bill 3526 aligns those existing standards by clarifying that routine ag brush management conducted in accordance with approved USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service conservation practices or an approved soil conservation district plan is exempt from additional county forest conservation requirements. This legislation reduces unnecessary bureaucracy, provides greater certainty for our farming community, and recognizes the technical expertise of our federal and local conservation partners without compromising environmental protections. I look forward to the committee's review and public hearing, and I respectfully ask for your support as this bill moves through the legislative process. Thank you. And I wanted to be added as a co-sponsor to Councilmember Lutke's bill, but I don't think you saw my text, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And yes, you'll be added as a co-sponsor. I'm going to turn it to Council Vice President Balcom.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Sales, for your work on this bill. So, as was stated, the agricultural land is already exempt from the forest conservation law if the clearing is for agricultural purposes. But the way that it's being, the law is being interpreted is that the farmers are required to get a waiver, even though they are already exempt. So this bill clarifies that the waiver is not necessary, and the jurisdiction it clarifies that it's the soil. So it really is just a clarifying bill of something that was already stated but not functioning as we thought it would. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Before I turn it to council members, is there anything else that needs to be added?
No, that's fine.
No? I'm going to start with Council Member Sidney Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor and thank the sponsors of this for doing this bill.
Thank you. Council Member Sarah Evans.
Please add me as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, this bill is introduced. We're going to move on to the next bill is 36-26, Fire and Emergency Services Commission, Duties and Responsibilities. The lead sponsor is Councilmember Lukey. A public hearing scheduled for September 22, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President. Many of us maybe didn't even know that there was a Fire Emergency Services Commission, but a little bit of background. It was created to assist with our blended fire service, our volunteer and career fire service. And it has existed for many, many, many years. But like many things, when they first get put into a statute, sometimes after years of operation, you see that it needs a little housekeeping, kind of like the bill we just heard about, where, you know, the farmers shouldn't have to get a waiver for a thing there are. This bill makes it so that the FESC, as the acronym is known, can do the job the council gave it to do and clarify some things that were causing confusion among the commission members and about how policies move through the review process. These are fire EMS policies that want to be adopted. The FESC has the ability to review, but we also wanted to make sure we don't have a stalemate, as in they say no, the chief need to do this, then what, right? So that's what the point of this bill is. So we needed to have a defined process that was clearer on that front, and also to put some time parameters in there for them to accomplish the work. It also strengthens accountability by establishing reporting deadlines, because they have already had an annual reporting deadline, but it didn't say when it was due. And actually for 10 years, we haven't had one. So again, good time to dust some things off, do some housekeeping. And I want to give thanks to Chief Smedley and his staff, the County Executive's Office, the IAFF, and Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association for talking through this, collaborating on this, and working through this so that we can get to a point that works better for all. So I look forward to further discussions on this fall as we work through it. And thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it to council staff. Is there anything else? Seeing none, this bill is introduced. We're going to move on to the last bill for introduction today is Bill 37-26, Disruptive Behavior Public Facilities Amendments. The lead sponsor is the Council President at the request of the County Executive. The public hearing is scheduled for September 22nd, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to turn it to council staff to please explain the bill.
Good morning, Council President. As you mentioned, Bill 3726, disruptive behavior. This would authorize the county to be able to issue longer disruptive behavior orders. Disruptive behavior orders is defined in the bill that basically restricts the normal functions of a facility. And now this bill will now allow not only for one public facility, but for multiple to be able to issue that order. It also is transferring the reviewing responsibilities from the Chief Administrative Officer to the County Police Department or the hearing examiner. It establishes process and procedures for issuing the disruptive behavior and the right to an evidentiary hearing and the right to appeal. I believe that's it. There's more to dive into when we go into our work session that's scheduled later.
Thank you for that. And with that, this bill is introduced. We're going to move on to call of bills for final reading. The first one is Bill 15-26, Taxation, Property Tax Credits, Habitat for Humanity, Rehabilitations, and I see your friends from Habitat for Humanity in the House. So thank you for being here. The Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee recommends enactment. I'm going to turn it to Chair Stewart. Will you please share the committee's recommendation?
Great, thank you. The Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee recommends passage of Bill 15-26. This bill would create a tax credit for properties owned by Habitat for Humanity with the purpose of rehabilitating and transferring to a new owner in the near future. Some background, there was enabling legislation from the General Assembly. In 2010, the General Assembly authorized a tax credit for certain properties owned by Habitat for Humanity entities intended for rehabilitation and conveyance. In 20, the authorization to include properties being developed for the same purposes. Bill 15-26 implements the tax credit in Montgomery County. The bill would mandate, beginning in tax year July 1st, 2027, a 100% tax credit for all properties intended to be relinquished in the near future, used for development, rehabilitation, and transfer to a private owner, and owned by Habitat Metro Maryland or another Habitat for Humanity affiliate operating in Montgomery County. The bill also establishes an application process for the tax credit and requires an annual report from entities granted the tax credit. And the bill further clarifies that the credit is only for the period in which a property meets the eligibility requirements. This bill was led by Councilmember Friedson and co-sponsored by many on the council. I want to thank Mr. Grozlek for his assistance in the committee as we discuss this. To full council.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Friedson as lead sponsor for this bill. And I want to say everybody co-sponsored this important bill. So thank you for your work on this. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thanks to the entire council for your support. This is a significant step in a positive direction. We're following here. Normally we're leading on affordable housing, but we're following Cecil, Carroll, Talbot, Dorchester, Harford, St. Mary's, and Caroline counties in implementing this bill. Want to really express my appreciation to Habitat for Humanity. Sarah Redinger is here. Jeff D. testified at the public hearing, and they've been just amazing partners to the county. We lack a lot of opportunities to create generational wealth building in housing affordability. Most of the federal, state, and county programs for housing affordability are focused on rental, which is critical. But in order to take the next step of actually helping for families to generate wealth, they need to have access to equity in homeownership. That is the primary vehicle with which the middle class is built and with which generational wealth is created. And that's exactly what Habitat for Humanity has done. They've been the county's most reliable partner in providing those efforts. This is an effort to continue their work to provide home ownership opportunities to families between 30 and 80% of area median income, which is something that is almost unfathomable to think about. That is an area of median income that usually is challenged to even find rental housing. And so to have opportunities for affordable home ownership opportunities is critical. What this is essentially doing is having the county be in the role as a partner with Habitat for Humanity to say that we're not going to charge you additional taxes to make the cost of providing that subsidized opportunity even higher, we're going to make it a little bit easier. And this is the type of partnership that we have seen effective and successful in some of our most important areas, including the old recreation site on Randolph Road, which Habitat for Humanity has been a great legislative partner there. Just want to express my appreciation also to Mr. Gorzalek and Finance, who worked really hard. This bill and what it does is very simple. How to do it is very complicated in terms of what point at which you are not being charged property taxes, how that's calculated, at what point that starts and when it's triggered. And that was worked out very well. This is just one of the many things that we need to do to address the housing affordability crisis and the broader affordability crisis for our families in Montgomery County, but it is a demonstration of how we've worked with our nonprofit partners through the pilot bill. This is kind of an extension of that, but for homeownership opportunities, the payment in lieu of taxes that we provide to our nonprofit partners who are providing affordable rental opportunities. So thank you for all the work. Really excited about this. This is something that had been in the works for a while, and I'm very proud and grateful that we're finally getting across the finish line. I will just note for colleagues, across the street, you will be able to see one great example in the city of Rockville of exactly the impact that this type of effort can and will continue to do. We will see the Fleet Street facility and property come up, and we will be able to watch it be built every day we come into our office here. And so I look forward to that, and hopefully after the passage of this bill, many more opportunities to do that. So thank you, Madam President.
Excellent. Thank you so much once again for all your work. Councilmember Andrew Feetson, is there anything else from council staff on this bill?
I would just note the summaries of the impact statements and testimony are in the packet.
Beautiful. Seeing nobody else wanting to speak, we are ready for this roll call vote. We have a recommendation from the GO committee. This is a roll call. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass? Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friedson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans votes yes. Councilmember Jawando? Yes. Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Finding Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Finding Gonzalez votes yes.
And the bill passes. Congratulations. Thank you so much for all your work. Next, we have item 4B, Bill 21-26, Employee Retirement Systems, Savings and Benefits Amendments. The Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee recommends enactment with amendments. I'm going to turn it to the chair of the committee to please provide the recommendations.
Thank you. The GO committee recommends enactment of Bill 21-26. This bill would implement negotiated changes to the county's retirement system affecting multiple employee groups, including correctional health nurses, emergency communications, and correctional personnel and members of local 1994 bargaining units by updating eligibility rules, retirement and plan provisions, and contribution rates consistent with the collective bargaining agreements effective July 1st, 2026 through July 30th, 2029. For my colleagues, all of this has been discussed prior by the council during our budget deliberations and consideration of the union contracts. One area that the committee did ask for and discussed for clarification was the impact of members moving from the RSP to the GRIP. The committee did discuss, and the packet was updated with new information regarding an analysis. We did discuss in committee, and we did this during the budget as well. The GO committee in particular has asked that information on costs and impact of policy changes when there are no negotiated changes to the CBAs be provided to the council as soon as possible. We are looking forward to working with the new administration, hoping that we will have information more readily available to us. And I do want to say thank you again to our central staff and all the work they did in a very short amount of time to make sure we were making informed decisions. But the GO committee recommends enactment of Bill 21-26.
Thank you for that report. Council staff, is there anything else that we need to cover?
Thank you, Madam President. And just noting that there was one technical amendment to correct a typographical error that the committee did adopt as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't see anyone wanting to speak. I see you now.
Just really quickly, the previous bill and this current bill, I was absent in committee. I wasn't feeling well, but had done my work and was very supportive of what my colleagues had recommended on their vote. So I just wanted to state that for the record.
Thank you for saying that. It's always very useful. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. And with that, we have a recommendation from the GO committee. This is a roll call vote again. Madam Clerk, can you please call the vote?
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass?
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friedson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans votes yes. Councilmember Jawando?
Yes.
Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez votes yes.
And this is approved. Thank you so much for all your work. We're going to move on to the next bill, and it's Bill 22-26, Finance, Economic Development Fund, Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Matching Grant Program, repeal of sunset date. The Economic Development Committee recommends enactment of this amendment. I'm the chair of the committee. So it was a 4-0 vote. On this issue, there is an in the committee because having session. So my understanding is that she plans to move it forward, but I'm gonna ask council staff to please brief us on the bill, and then I'm gonna turn it and see if anybody has questions, and after that, I'm gonna turn it to Councilmember Sales so she can explain her amendment, and then after she's done, I'm gonna turn it to the executive to talk about it. I have my opinions about it, and but I'm going to start with staff. If you can please discuss the bill.
Sure. So this bill was is a bill introduced by the council president on behalf of the county executive. In its very initial stages, it's a very simple bill. The SBIR bill was had a sunset, which has expired. That program was able to continue due to annual appropriations, but it was the position of the county executive that having the law codified lent some stability to the business community to grant from the SBIR program. And so at introduction, the bill was simply just a removal of the sunset so that the program could continue to go as codified. Along with that, there was some transition language added to allow for any entities that may have been, for whatever reason, lost in that lapse period from the sunset to the bill's reviving of the law. So that's sort of what happened at introduction. There were no testimony related to this bill. The fiscal impact, climate assessment, racial equity and social justice, and economic impact are all relatively minor. Positive economic impact is, you might imagine, from investment in the local business community. And the RESJ noted that there's a possibility that this could reinforce existing racial disparities in the STEM industry. I'll note that the SBIR program is limited in its current form to 3 specific industries, which are right. Sorry, I don't have the bill in front of me. Sorry, I should know this. The actual specific industries are the, in court, I would say court's indulgence, sorry. Thought Don would like that one. Sorry, medicine, biotechnology, and life sciences are the three limited areas. And so this, by and large, no fiscal impact because it is just implementing what is already an existing program and was an existing program. So at committee, there were two amendments that the committee adopted. One was a council staff amendment, which during the review of this bill, we noticed that there was an issue in the existing language, which basically set as an eligibility requirement for the SBIR match that the entity have received the SBIR federal grant within the last fiscal year. That could create a gap where if an entity receives the SBIR federal grant, let's say in May or June, they just simply might not have time to turn over the application to the county for the matching grant. And with us, because it went to eligibility and not to availability of funding in the county coffers, that could make it that entity ineligible. So it was just fixed to say within the 12 months preceding its application to the county. That's just clarifying amendment to fix a glitch. The second amendment, which was offered by the council president, was to codify the Phase 0 grant that already exists in the county regulations. This is a $5,000 grant for entities for reimbursable businesses expenses for when they apply to the Phase 1 and Phase 2 SBIR federal grants. I will note that after committee, the executive branch raised a potential issue that because this is intended, the Phase 0 grants are intended for a very low bar, very early startups, entities that may not have built out administrative costs. It's a pretty low burden to apply for the Phase 0 grants. Also, it's only for $5,000, but there was some concern that certain individuals might be able to game the system by creating federal government, but if they have no intention of actually pursuing that grant money, maybe the invoices that they submit are fictionalized or just not legitimate. And so there was also just a minor addition to the Council President Fanny Gonzalez's amendment, which the committee had supported, which added the words legitimate and bona fide to the amendment related to the application to the federal SBIR program, as well as to the business expenses. Following the committee session, that language with the update was circulated to all of the committee members who had voted for the amendment and received no objection. So that is the committee recommendation. And then yesterday, council staff circulated an addendum with an amendment that is being offered by Councilmember Sales. I don't know, Councilmember Sales, would you like me to sort of introduce it, or would you like to speak first?
I'll speak first,
Sure.
and then I'll turn it back over to you, Jim. Thank you. And so, colleagues, as we consider Bill 22 to extend our SBIR STTR matching grant program, I am offering an amendment to strengthen accountability and ensure this investment benefits businesses across Montgomery County. The bill's racial equity and social justice impact statement identified important gaps in our understanding of who is accessing these grants and the impact they are having. So my amendment requires an annual survey of applicants and awardees to collect simple optional information on business ownership, job creation, wages, private investment, workforce development, partnerships with minority, women, disabled, and veteran-owned businesses. We cannot improve what we do not measure. Better data will help us evaluate outcomes, identify barriers, and ensure this program is actually expanding opportunity for all. I respectfully ask for your support, and we'll turn things back over to Jim to expound. Thank you.
So the way that this amendment works is that it sort of reworks what is currently an annual reporting requirement that the executive already has to the county, but it expands it, as you can note in the addendum. It changes sort of what the requirement of the executive is to shift it from a report to a survey. Part of the issue with the report has been, according to the Office of the County Attorney, some of the racial, ethnic, and gender demographic information that is in the current existing law could be problematic for the county to request or to collect. And so that is part of the reason why it was shifted to a survey. And then some of the other information is just information, it was discussed briefly at the committee related to wages, commercialization outcome, follow-on private investment. And then there are two other survey questions that are noted on page 2 of the addendum. The first relates to general workforce development activities supported by the grant within the community, and the second relates to something similar to inclusive procurement. I'll note that those are not requirements or preconditions of award or anything. It is just those are added to the survey that this amendment would require be put out by the executive.
Thank you for that. I'm going to turn it to the executives team to please share your thoughts on this amendment.
Thank you, Council President Fanny Gonzalez and members of the council. Appreciate being here today. My name is Ken Hartman Espada, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. I'm here with my colleague Dennis Hetman from the Department of Finance, who will help fill in the gaps with my knowledge of this program. We do appreciate the council's consideration of this bill. Staff has done a great job in supporting you and bringing this forward. Regarding this specific amendment from Councilmember Sales, we do appreciate the how it's offered, and we do appreciate what we're trying to get to, which is, are our economic development grant programs equitable? Do members of our public have equal access and equitable access to the resources they need to start and grow and scale their businesses in Montgomery County? That said, in this particular amendment, our belief is, at least for items A through F in the amendment, we feel we already collect this information, are more than happy to report on it. I think some of it is already in our reports and data collection. Item G are the items we already collect that is not part of this amendment. Regarding item H, which is the description of workforce development activities. So these grants, by their definition, are for very specific research and development projects, which may or may not result in the hire of employees or interns or apprentices. So that's going to be difficult to gauge in just through this piece of the program. Later, as they scale, that data may become available. And item I, similar to H, the grants are given for research projects to companies. For example, an oncology therapy company that may never sell a product or good to the county. So the way this is written, it is written as a survey. It doesn't appear to be something that we would compel companies to respond to, and does not appear to be a condition of the program. But I'm just laying this out there because not all of these data points are going to be relevant to the program.
Thank you for that explanation. Look, I for putting this forward that we received from the county executive. I do not believe that we need this amendment. A year, 2 years ago as well, I am not going to support it, but before we open it for discussion, is there a second on Councilmember Sales' motion for this amendment? Okay, it has been seconded by Councilmember Evans. Now I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Evans for questions or comments.
Yes, so I had a question. So, Mr. Hartman, I think you mentioned just a few minutes ago that you can report or you do report A through E. Is that what you said? You can or you do?
That is correct. A through G.
A through G. You do report it or
Correct.
you can?
It's part of our quarterly progress reports for the fund.
Okay. I thought I heard that correctly. And I was just trying to understand if what Councilmember Sales is trying to do is just ensure that there's not a level of bias, and that we hear from the people that are being awarded. So I think in that regard, I hear what she's trying to do. But if you're saying you provide this information, I just wanted clarity. Then that was my question that I wanted to ask.
Have somebody else ahead of you, please. Council Vice President.
Asked a question and no one's responded.
Okay. They did, but you just couldn't see them. They nodded, but do you want to put it on the record?
Certainly, Dennis Hetman, Department of Finance. We do collect A through G currently. That's part of our quarterly progress reports.
Thank you. Give us 1 second, because now we cannot see Councilmember Sales. She can hear us? She cannot hear us anymore?
Development or any the resources in the community.
Can you please go, because we couldn't hear you, Councilmember Sales. Can you please start from the beginning?
Yes, so as Mr. Espada is already collected, H&I are additional questions about how the money, once the business has the money, how they are using this grant to support internships, apprenticeships, educational opportunities, to see how far this money is going into the community. That's not reflected in A through G. It's also asking if they are partnering with minority and disabled owned businesses, because we know that most of the companies that have been awarded have not met our requirements or our designation of minority and, female disabled owned businesses. The demographics have not reflected the aims and goals of the original bill.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the county executives team to answer that comment.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to my colleague, Mr. Hetman, to talk about this program and its relationship to the federal program.
Again, very specific companies with R&D projects. So in terms of both H&I, there won't necessarily be new employees or apprenticeships that accompany this. So that's just, it would be potentially burdensome for the company if it's not applicable. We appreciate in both items that what was added was if applicable, and that is also correlating what we report to ultimately what we receive, and that's what we can control. So we appreciate that.
Thank you for that. I have next Council Vice President Balcom.
Thank you. So I appreciate, we started this discussion in the Econ Committee last week, and the idea of trying to get more information for all of our, for our grants. This just happens to be the one that we're speaking about right now. I think that this amendment just conflates the reporting and the survey. And so I understand why you made that change, but a report exists, right? And so is correct?
Under law, there is a mandated report that it's significantly narrower. There also, as Mr. Hetman indicated, is a quarterly report related to it's just part of the broader Economic Development Fund report, that does include a lot of the information that is not currently mandated in law, but would be mandated by this amendment, if that makes sense.
And then I guess the information would be useful. My concern about this is that this specific grant, the SBIR grant, is such the total amount of economic development grants. So if we look at, this is roughly $200,000 in grants, where the total number is $25 million in grants. So I think that when we look at why we should be collecting additional information and what the additional information would be used for, I think is valuable. But to to put that onus on this specific grant, I don't see why we should look at this specific grant, just because the whole purpose of this bill is to eliminate the sunset. And so I'm having trouble with that discussion of why are we putting it on this grant when it's just a tiny, tiny sliver of what we actually do. And it's a matching federal grant. It's not a grant that we don't determine who gets this grant. That's a federal distinction, and we match it. So I'm not supporting the amendment.
Thank you for that. And as we have said in committee and before, we are going to have follow-up sessions in the fall with other programs and other grants where we can have this conversation. But targeting this particular grant, as it was explained once again by Council Vice President Balcom, is not okay. Doesn't make any sense. But I appreciate the effort of bringing up this important issue. So I don't see anybody else wanting to speak on this amendment. I'm going to turn it for one more time to Council Member Sales.
Thank you, Council President. Any instance of Montgomery County ignoring a racial equity and social justice statement just will cause a ripple effect. So regardless of how small our tax dollars are used, we cannot tout how we are proud of our diverse community and we're equitable and we strive to be inclusive if we are not consistent, regardless of the amount. In every instance, we should try to ensure that the money we put out, whether it's a matching grant, $5,000, $25, we want to ensure that it's being done in an equitable way. We want to understand its impact once the money leaves our coffers. We should be able to understand that information. This is optional information that they are already collecting. It's 2 additional questions on a survey. So I'm not sure why we would be afraid of collecting additional information if applicable to the business. It's not a requirement, and it's not going to deter anyone from being awarded, whether they answer the question or not. It's after they receive it. So if we want to ignore RESJ statements, fine. You do not have to support it. This will be a consistent reminder that the law is interpreted by whomever's perspective. So I will close with that and appreciate the opportunity to discuss this.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it back in to the executives team if there's anything else that you would like to add.
No further comments on this.
Thank you. Councilmember Shara Evans.
Sure. So thank you, everybody, for your statements. You answered my questions. I appreciate the comments of my colleagues as well. And so I do understand what was stated earlier, that we don't do the awarding, that it should not be applied to this particular bill. But my colleague does make a good point. So what I can't do is dismiss the racial equity and social justice impact in that part. So I gave it a second for a discussion, but I am going to support my colleague on this amendment, whether it passes or not. So I just want to state that for the record.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hartman Espada, you had ticked through earlier the data that the county collects as the amendment is offered A through I. Can you repeat again what data the county currently collects from A through I?
So on the list in the amendment, we do collect A through G is already a data we collect.
Can you state what G is?
G is demographic data, including race, ethnicity, and gender of the owners.
Can you say that louder?
what G is the demographic data, including race, ethnicity, and gender of the owners of eligible businesses, applicants, and awardees under the program.
Demographic data including the race, ethnicity, and gender. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nobody's dismissing our value in our work on racial equity because we already do it. No one. I don't see, Councilmember Wojowondo.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion. I've often brought up in this, we don't sometimes discuss racial equity, but we always talk about it. On the survey, I understand the point you're making. We collect this voluntarily. This bill would require us to collect it. So if I'm parsing that out, if someone tomorrow didn't want to collect this anymore, the data that was just talked about, A through G, we would not have, there would be no requirement upon you to collect it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's number one. Just want to clear that up for colleagues. I think it should be required to collect this information. It is not required under law. It's nice that the current county executive does and the current administration does, and hopefully the future one will too, but we should require it. So that's number one. So that the amendment does that. Two, on the survey question, it also creates a survey which currently doesn't exist, right? That would need to be something new that would be sent. Questions would be asked of these grantees, if applicable, which also says in there, if they, and I understand from what you both said, it's probably not going to be applicable for many, but but it potentially could be, depending on what they're doing. And so this would be a survey that was sent out. No, there's no penalty if they don't respond. So it'd just be kind of something, more information to be gathered. Where would that, if this were to pass, where would you include that information? Would you include it in the quarterly report? What would be the administrability of that?
Exactly, either the quarterly progress report or then the EDF annual report, which is comprehensive across all the funds. Whatever we get, we'll analyze, we'll report it to the fullest extent that we can in everything that we publish.
And there are how many grantees last year for this program?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but can get
more than 10, less than 10?
It depends on the phase.
Less than 10 is Bilal says less than 10. So it's not a big group.
Correct.
So you'd be sending a survey to a small group that you would include in the reports that already exist, and we would require this information that you currently are collecting to be collected in the future in perpetuity.
Exactly. And so logistically, for this smaller program, it's not that heavy a lift. However, if this were to translate across the breadth of the entire EDF, that's a whole other story and a considerable lift that we would have to have structures in place to collect, to analyze, and to report. But for this specific program.
But you said you already collect A through G for all EDF currently, correct? Or no?
Not all of it, yeah, just for pieces of that. But or we have elements of A through G, but not all of them for each of the
based
funds.
on the different programs.
Correct.
So that is a larger discussion we're going to have.
Right.
And that's fine, but that doesn't mean it's not wrong to do it here if you're already collecting the information. So I'm going to support the amendment, and I look forward to the conversation in the fall to talk about all the information I believe we should be collecting demographic information on all of our EDF grants and discussing it and considering it as part of how the programs function. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Joando. I'm confused. So I just and I apologize for making you repeat this, but I want to make sure I understand what we're being asked today. So, and I'm just going to repeat what Councilmember Joando said because I need to repeat it for myself. So right now, we do collect A through G, and that is in a report that's given to us each year, but that is not required of the grantees.
That is correct.
Correct. Councilmember Sales' amendment would do a survey, but as she said herself, it would be optional. The reporting that you get now, information from the less than 10 grantees, is that optional or is that something they have to do to receive the matching grant? Provide that information?
For these elements, it's optional.
It's optional. So both are optional.
No, amendment
please
would make
don't.
it required.
Well, I want to clarify that because the word optional has been used regarding the survey
Yeah,
as well.
so maybe I can.
Yes.
My understanding of the program from ongoing conversation between executive branch and council staff, there is a survey, but don't think of it as those of you who may have ever worked in surveys before as like a formal survey because of how small the program it is. It manifests more as the program director at the executive branch emailing, re-emailing, trying to get the information. These are small companies, as you might imagine. They don't have administrative teams. They got their money from the county. It's a little bit challenging to get the information. So that's the form, just to be very clear, like that's the form that the existing survey. One of the reasons of the turn here in this amendment from report to survey was a concern about placing a requirement upon the executive that it could not achieve for one of two reasons. One, if for legal reasons, advice from counsel, the Office of the County Attorney, there were issues with collecting the racial demographic data, that placing the onus on the report, we would be setting up the executive to sort of violate the county law and its obligations. The second was just because of the challenges that the executive had. We decided it was best to shift the in Councilmember Sal's amendment to shift the own. That's why there's another reason to turn to the survey onus, which is under the amendment still required to be reported. There's still a mandate report of the survey results, but that way the executive branch is not set up for failure if they, the respondents just don't want to respond or don't respond for whatever reason, especially because there are legal concerns under the existing obligations about mandating a response from the businesses. So I hope that sort of clears up.
So the requirement is on the county exec's office to report it, but there is no requirement on the grantees to provide the information.
Correct, and that's because under current law, the only information set forth in this amendment that is currently under law required to be collected, and there is concern from the Office of the County Attorney about the mandating that collection, and so that's an optional information that they gather. Anything else, I guess the A through F elements in the amendment are not mandated under county code, but are collected through the sort of informal survey process, and the results of that are provided in the quarterly reports.
Right, okay. But under this, it's still optional for the grantees to report it. It just becomes mandatory for the county exec's office to provide it.
Under the amendment, the mandate is on the county executive to survey the applicants and recipients, and then to report the results of the survey. So there is no obligation in law whether the executive, either through its administration of the program or through regulation, wanted to mandate or condition receipt of funds to some sort of ongoing survey thing. That certainly would be within the executive's prerogative, but in the amendment itself and what would be in the code if this amendment were adopted does not require a response from any recipient. It does require the county executive to transmit in a report whatever responses it gets to the survey.
Yeah. So, and again, I apologize, but we were given this late yesterday, and I'm reading the racial equity and social justice impact statement, and I'm trying to combine both of them because, and I very, very much appreciate my colleague doing this, but I'm not sure this amendment actually gets at what the racial equity and social justice impact statement is actually asking us to do. And so I feel a little pulled in both directions because of not having appropriate amount of time to really understand how we can best follow the advice of the racial equity and social justice impact statement, and to do this in such a short time with the amendment before us. So I see we have other colleagues in the queue. I'd like to continue considering this because I agree. I also would like to follow the recommendations of the social justice, the racial equity and social justice impact statement. I'm just not sure we're doing that here.
Thank you for that. And that was the main problem with this whole thing. We received the amendments the day of the Economic Development Committee work session. And I explained to colleagues, please share your amendments ahead of the work session so people can be prepared. So we decided to have this discussion here to give people more time. And again, we're going to have this discussion for all grants in the fall. Just please don't forget that. I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Mink.
I'm also still similarly parsing the questions raised by Councilmember Stewart, but I did want to return again to the question about how much of a lift this is, because you said this is not much of a lift, right? For this particular amendment.
For this particular amendment, and this program it's not that much of a lift. We do look forward to that discussion about the entire program.
That will be a lift.
And just want to make sure on the record, this is not the executive's concerns about collecting the data. The council knows this, on many programs, we do collect racial, demographic, gender data, but it's always the disclosure of the applicant. It's not a mandate for receiving our programs.
Right.
And for this program, we're matching a federal program, so these applicants have been vetted elsewhere when they come to us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's an important point, but also doesn't necessarily, I think, negate the purpose of this amendment, because even though we're not the ones who are selecting the recipients, but we are still, deciding to make a match, and how much of a value is that match, and how much does that match, align with, our RegJ values and so on. And so even though we're not, again, selecting the applicants, I think that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be considering this data. So the two questions that I'm still considering are, one, the fact that we're going to be returning to this question in a much broader sense, which is what we really need to do. And I think that this amendment is an acknowledgement, right, that we need to be doing that as well. But whether the conclusions that we come to over further discussions about how we should be collecting and parsing the data, going to complicate how we end up codifying all that. And then the question, I'm also looking over the racial equity and social justice impact statement also to understand the alignment here. But I will say that on its face from our discussion thus far, the fact that this is a low lift, it's not going to negatively impact applicants or awardees, and it is in alignment with data that we all want, to me, has me leaning towards supporting the amendment for now, although I know we're going to come back to this conversation and there may potentially be changes that we want to make later, but that's where my head's at the moment. I'm interested to hear what else my colleagues have to say.
Council staff?
I just want to make one quick point of clarification as this amendment interplays with the other amendment from the committee. Presently, the data, because the way that because phase 0 is not in the county code, it's only in the county regs, that the demographic data that is existing in present law do in fact progress to the phase 1 or phase 2 matching grant. The way this is presently written, which could be changed, of course, this would apply to if the council accepts the committee offered amendment related to phase 0 grants. This would capture the phase 0 grant recipients as well in its present form. That obviously could be revised in this amendment to only capture the data from phase 1 and phase 2, but as presently drafted, this would capture phase 0. And I forgot to mention it before, and I forgot it at committee, and I told myself I wouldn't, but I did. The amendment codifying phase 0 goes beyond the 3 life science industries that are presently contemplated, and so it would be for broader industries. So to your question, Councilmember, about that, with the extent of the lift, and the colleagues from the executive branch would have to comment about how that actually manifests. But as presently drafted, this would capture phase 0 grant recipients, which could theoretically be much larger because it's beyond the 3. Obviously, that could be shifted today or any other day in this amendment to limit it to phase 1 or phase 2. But I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Another reason why we should hold until the fall as we discuss other grants and not do this now. Council Vice President Balcom.
Thank you so much to react to from my colleagues. So I do want to reiterate that this is a much more global issue of how we get information from our grantees. And I think that this certainly underscores the need to do that. I think that it would not be a heavy lift to add 2 more questions. However, we need to have a much more global look. In terms of if we are going to add more questions to the survey, are these the 2 questions other questions that we should be asking? And are there other ways to look at the racial equity and social justice of all of our grants globally? As I said, this is $200,000 of $25 million that are in our fund. And so if we pass this now, and then we come back and look at it more globally, we're going to have to go back and change it either way. Or do we have an omnibus understanding of the data that we're going to collect from all of our grantees? And then when we look at the nexus between this racial equity and social justice review of this particular grant, it really stems from who is getting the grant, not our workforce development or our procurement, because these 2, H&I, have to do with workforce development and procurement. It does not have anything to do with who is actually getting this grant. And so I don't see a nexus between the racial equity social justice statement and this amendment. And I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you for saying that. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I think we need to get back to the original thought about this legislation, which was to repeal the sunset date, and which is a good thing. We needed to do that and stop doing it on an hourly basis. I think that we need to be looking at this in a holistic way, and I believe Council Vice President just hit the nail on the head. We need to have a lot of questions answered, and we don't know whether we've thought of all these questions at the 11th hour. And the other problem is, if we pass it this way, then when we come back in the fall and look at the other questions and what else we should be doing, then we're going to have to come back to this legislation and change it again, because we've already done this. I think we need to do what we originally thought, which is the right thing, get rid of the sunset date, then come back in the fall and really do the right thing the right way. So I am not supportive of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, and we will have that work session in Econ with all the grants as it should be. Last word by Councilmember Sells.
Thank you, colleagues. I just want to briefly statement since it was mentioned. The analysis concludes that continuing this program is unlikely to change existing disparities. It should give us pause as we are anticipating a comprehensive look at all of our programs and the money we are sending out into the community, and trying to understand what that impact is beyond the awardee. If we are making a permanent investment with public dollars, we should also be committed to understanding who is benefiting and whether there are barriers to participation, given who's been awarded and what outreach and engagement we need to do. But we don't know who they're partnering with. We don't know who they're hiring, who they're contracting with. My amendment does not change the purpose of this successful program. It simply gives us data that we need to evaluate outcomes, impact, identify opportunities to broaden access, and ensure our investments are reaching the full diversity of Montgomery County's innovation economy. Good policy begins with good data. So I believe this amendment strengthens the program and our ability to make better policy decisions in the future. So I appreciate all of the discussion. Look forward to the president calling.
Thank you. We have an amendment by Councilmember Sales. All those 4 against, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The amendment fails. Is there any question for the overall bill from anybody? Seeing none, we have a committee recommendation by the Economic Development Committee. This is a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass? Yes. Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friedson?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes. Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans votes yes. Councilmember Joando? Councilmember Joando votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez votes yes.
Thank you so much. The bill passes. We are going to move on to the next bill for final action, and it's Expedited Bill 23-26, Restrictions on Guns Near Minors and Carrying of Firearms in or near places of public assembly. The Public Safety Committee recommends enactment with amendments. I'm going to turn it to Chair Katz. Will you please share the committee's report?
Thank you very much, Madam President. Bill 2326, the lead sponsor is Councilmember Lukey, and co-sponsors are Council President Fanny Gonzalez, Vice President Balcom, Councilmembers Friedson, Evans, Glass, and me. The purpose of this bill is to bring county law in compliance with the Maryland Supreme Court opinion regarding regulation of ghost guns and other firearms in place of public assembly with respect to minors. The public hearing was held on June 9th. The Public Safety Committee held a work session on June 15th and voted 3-0 in support of the bill with amendments. And if with your indulgence, Madam President, I'd like to turn to Councilmember Lukey, who certainly knows a whole lot more about this bill than I do, and then to Ms. Wellens, who knows a lot in addition to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Katz. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to Ms. Wellens for all of her work on this bill. As noted, there were 2 amendments that we took up at the committee session just to tweak things and make it a little tighter. And so I certainly appreciate that. And this truly is, back to the theme of today, housekeeping, fixing gaps, doing housekeeping. The sole purpose of this bill is to bring into conformity our local laws that were passed by the prior council to match what was issued in the Maryland Supreme Court's decision in the Engage Armament decision that was issued on April 28th. So it does not add new law, does not add new requirements in any way, shape, or form. And the only things that were removed are the things that were found to be in excess of the county's authority or otherwise preempted by state law. And the reason for doing it was, again, solely to make sure that what we do have eliminates or exceed our constitutional authority of the Maryland Code and gives us something that is still enforceable. So I did just want to flag that, that we have not created additional requirements by doing this bill. So with that, if there are questions, I'm happy to address them. I know there were some questions that are things that rose during the public testimony, but again, there were concerns that were raised with particular places of public assembly that the Maryland Supreme Court says are okay.
I'm happy to talk more deeply about that, putting on my prior hat in the active assailant space and the why the policy is and why this was a thing that we, as a county felt was important in the first place. And to note that I and my office and my team and other external stakeholders are continuing to work together on this to make sure, along with our public safety partners in the police department who have been engaging with that community for years since the original passage of this bill, or the existing county laws in 2021 and 2022, that everyone is on the same sheet of music, or as someone said earlier, rowing in the same direction, right? So thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Chair Katz. And with that, Ms. Wellens.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you to Councilmember Lukey and Chair Katz. I think they hit the nail on the head. I don't have anything to add unless you would like further explanation or there are questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for all your work. We're going to start with Councilmember Lori Sells.
Thank you, Member Lutke, for introducing. I did have a few questions. You mentioned that there is already a state law requiring this already, restrictions on guns in government buildings. So I'm just wanted clarification on why we're doing this law here.
Thank you to Councilmember Sales for the question, which is a great question. That it is true there are some overlapping requirements, and the state, subsequent to the council passing its law regarding places of public assembly, the state also altered its law regarding places of public assembly. There is some overlap, but the reason for this bill is that the state did grant to us some additional authority. They specifically have regulated in this field, but they've also specifically said to the counties, you are able to go above and beyond in terms of regulating firearms in places of public assembly. And also you can regulate firearms with respect to minors. So this bill is, well, prior bills have exercised that authority. And then some of the ways in which we did that were need to be modified due to the Supreme Court's review. And so this bill is bringing us under compliance with the Supreme Court opinion. But again, it is allowing us to, in some cases, repeat what the state law is saying, but it allows us to add our own penalties, and then we can also expand upon what the state law does. So it just simply allows us to greater regulate our own places of public assembly in the county and firearms with respect to minors.
Thank you. So how will compliance be regulated and carried out?
The compliance will continue to be regulated through the police department, also through just regulation, assembly, administrative procedures, the police department and state's attorney if there were to be a violation.
I'm just wondering how a law enforcement officer or someone would know that I'm carrying a concealed weapon unless they stop and frisk me. And so I'm just trying to understand how this compliance and how people would be found unless there's a metal detector or something that someone, I'm just trying to understand if this is an opportunity to allege that someone has something so they can be stopped and frisked. I'm just concerned that this may lead to greater surveillance of everyday citizens. So
thank you for the question, Councilmember Sales, and fair points. I think that the way that we have place of public assembly defined. It's defined as a park, place of worship, school, library, recreational facility,
Yeah, I saw all
government
of
building. And so these are places where, I mean, the council had determined that it's not appropriate to have a firearm, even if you do have a concealed carry. I think the enforcement would I'm not an expert on that, but I think the enforcement would largely take place through a complaint based. For example, if you were to bring a weapon into the council office building and our security guards ask you to go through the metal detector, it turns out you have a weapon and you say, but no, I have a concealed carry license. And they could tell you, notwithstanding that, you're no place of public assembly, you're not allowed to have it here. You would either leave, or I suppose if you refuse to leave, then the police could be engaged in that point. I realize that's a very fact-specific hypothetical. But I do think these places are not, they're not private places. They're not, I'm walking on the sidewalk. They are specific places where the council had found that we don't want weapons here, regardless of whether you have a license.
Okay, I'm just not sure how anyone would know. I know that we have a metal detector at the county building, but parks and places of worship, I'm just how that will be assessed. Places where they don't have a metal detector. So I just wanted to keep that in mind, because you don't know who's carrying at a public park. Signage is great, but anyone can make an accusation of anyone. And we discussed this during the Leaf Blower bill and made amendments about how to capture and, report someone. And so I'm just wondering if this is going to cause some unintended are already over policed and over surveilled. So I'll wait for the vote.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it back to Councilmember Lutke.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Sales, for your questions. I did want to in the context where somebody may be attempting to enter a building where it is prohibited and there are metal detectors, so it becomes aware, or there's a sign posted, but maybe no metal detector. And they're like, oh, wait, but I have a wear and carry permit. And there's a discussion. Typically, they're allowed to they say, hey, you can go secure your firearm, right? You leave, you go secure your firearm in your vehicle, typically, or wherever, and then you are permitted back on the premises. In the other context where someone may be entering a space and may be in possession of a firearm, even if you have a concealed carry permit, if you are acting suspiciously or someone becomes aware that you have a gun and something is wrong, that is something we do want people to be able to speak up about and deal with. And this bill does not change existing state law with respect to who can have a firearm or anything of that sort. For example, this bill still includes schools as a place of public assembly. The only people who can have a gun on if you're carrying pursuant to LEOSA, which is a federal law for retired law enforcement officers. And even then, the practice is you are supposed to, if you are carrying, it must be concealed, and you must announce at the front when you enter the school building that you are in fact carrying pursuant to LEOSA. So we don't have the authority to preempt or to do something that conflicts with that federal law. So what is being done here, and I appreciate the things you're raising about sensitivity to making sure someone isn't over-policed or a particular area isn't over-policed. We also are dealing, and that is one aspect of this, and I think as a county, again, back to our values and concerns, we are very attuned to. We are also very attuned to the fact that we are living in a world where there's a proliferation of firearms, and we need to make sure we are making safe spaces for public assembly for all of our community members. And so there is a balance to be struck there. It requires day in, day out application and thoughtfulness. But that is that was what was underlying the original bills from 2021 and 2022 that the prior council did. And this is just, again, housekeeping to contain our local law within the parameters that the Maryland Supreme Court has given us. Thank you.
We appreciate you for all your work, Councilmember Lukey. I don't see anybody else wanting to speak. And with that, I see, oh, no, it went away. I saw a hand, but then it went away. So, okay. So with that, we have a recommendation by the Public Safety Committee. This is a roll call vote as well. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lukey?
Yes.
Councilmember Lukey votes yes. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
No.
Councilmember Sales votes no. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Glass? Yes. Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Friedson? Councilmember Friedson